Sooner. Check, check, check. All right, there we go. So can they hear you too? Do a little audio test too right now, Hamza. I don't know.
Check, check, check. One,
yeah,
two,
there you go. Okay. Reintroduction. We're going to clip that out of the live stream. Hey, welcome back to edition 12 of the live stream. Yeah, we need to hear that a little bit faster, Hamza. But thanks for coming out, guys. We are here, and we're back for edition 12 of the 1% Engineer Show. Done that a couple times where you go and just talk on mute for a few seconds. Need to make sure that automatically happens. Welcome back. If you are here for one of the first times, make sure you go ahead and smash that like button so as many of our 70,000 subscribers see the show. Welcome to 1% Engineer, where we empower young engineers to rise to the top 1% of their career. And we do that in a whole bunch of ways, where we have 130 episodes of the 1% Engineer Show. We help people do all types of things within choosing the right major, surviving engineering, and getting that first internship or job. There's about 140 videos, so check that out, including these live streams. We do this every Thursday night at around 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for being here. Again, smash that like button so as many people can join the show as possible. A couple little shout outs before we get started. First of all, Grant Waldy, you are awesome for queuing up the first level of questions for this stream tonight. We're going to have you on the live stream. Every time we're on here, like, hey, we got to get Grant on the live stream. Let's try to get you on here for December 17th if you can. If not, right into the new year. Guys, join the Discord server. In the links below, in the live stream, you will find some awesome links. First of all, you can join over 950 engineers in our Discord server. It's our online community where you can talk with other people about homework problems, choosing the right major, whatever you have to figure out in the moment. You can do homework challenges, whatever you need to do, guys. That's where you need to be within the community. Also, follow the Instagram page. We're trying to get to over 500 followers on the Instagram page before 2021. I think we're almost at 400, so help us get there. And also, if you guys want an internship for 2021 for the spring, for the summer, then you need to apply for the 1% Engineer Remote Internship. You can find a form in the description below, but make sure you apply. We're doing a couple things. We're building internships, and then also we are calling employers, and we're actually trying to hustle to get you guys internships. So if you can pass the filters and you think you qualify for 1% Engineer Remote Internship, then maybe we can set you up with one this spring or summer. So drop your questions into the chat. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Hamza Wahid. Hamza is our Director of Operations, so go ahead and friend him on LinkedIn. That's why you have that in the bottom of the nameplate. Hamza's been with me for about 4 years helping out. We now have a team of 8 to 10 engineers from all around the world doing various things like working on the Instagram, working on interview series, working on all types of things. So let's go ahead and jump into some of our regular scheduled things. Guys, we're going to talk about how to get an internship this year in the spring, in the summer. And if you can't do that, we'll set you up with something like our own remote internship. We're going to talk about master's degrees. We've getting a lot of questions about master's degrees, if that should be something that you do instead of maybe going into the job hunting rat race. And then finally, I think we're going to go over picking the right major. So many of you are trying to figure out which is the right engineering major, the right engineering specialty to choose. It's very hard. So let's talk about that really quickly. So Hamza, do you want to get us started with talking about any interview or any internship tactics, or you want me to get started with that?
I'd say you get started with that.
Okay, cool. So guys, you've heard me say this before, but this is our playbook for getting an internship in the spring of 2021, summer of 2021. It's harder than ever, okay? You can't just be a list in the pile, a resume on the stack. Guys, make sure you hit that like button. The 24 of you are in here. We only got 10 likes. I want to make sure that everybody's smashing that like button so more people see this. It'll pop to the top of everybody's newsfeed if you hit that like button. Thanks. So what you need to do is you need to write down the 5 people who are in your life who you know, who are professors or people in your engineering organizations, in your clubs. Maybe if you're not even out of high school yet, it could be a science teacher, math teacher, but you need to write down the names of the people who you can ask about introductions to an engineer. Okay, people who may even know somebody who may be working in engineering, who may have STEM contacts. Of course, this is why we talk about professors. This is why we talk about some of the leaders in your engineering clubs, organizations, societies, things like that. But write down the 5 people who you think can potentially introduce you to an engineer and have them introduce you. It's so much more powerful if you're an introduction and a connection to somebody instead of just a cold LinkedIn message, a cold email, just a random phone call. So that's what you need to do at first. I'm going to do a couple shout outs here as we get going into the interview conversation. Carlos, thanks for being here. Guys, go ahead and let us know where you're from and what type of engineer you are. I love to always poll the crowd and what you're trying to figure out right now. Drop your questions in the chat. Make sure you smash that like button too, because we want as many people to see this in the newsfeed. So Carlos, thanks for being here. Anthony, thanks for being here. Roberto Torres, that's Rob. Rob, really glad that you're here. Manny, you're also on the team. Rob's on the team. No Grant in real life. Grant, you're probably my closest engineering corporate person that I've ever met in real world engineering of all time. So you're awesome, man. Sadu on the teams, on the core team. Kevin on the Discord team. Then we got Jesus in here. Awesome. Who else is in here? Krish Patel, thanks for the questions earlier. Zik is here on the team. Avorex on the team. J Star Beats, recognize you. If you make beats, why don't we talk about getting your music on the show? That would be really cool, I think, if we can make that happen. That seems like everybody. So after you write those 5 names down, okay, what you need to do is you need to reach out and you need to know exactly what's going on in their career. You need to know what their company is doing. You need to know if they've won awards or have updates, or even personally, these people may be posting about their career and you may have something where you can reach out and say, hey, congratulations on this, or I saw this, or you gotta reach out and be relevant and make sure, hey, Manny, and make sure the engineering guy, what's up, and make sure that it makes them feel like you are following them, you are looking at their career, you want to be a part of that company and things like that. And then the next 5 people that you need to write down, we're trying to get the 10 names, is you have to go onto LinkedIn, go onto the internet and look at what companies are actually in your backyard, in your home city, in your home area. What type of companies hire engineers? The best way to find this out is you go to glassdoor.com or indeed.com. I really like Glassdoor because I see all the big engineering companies there. But start searching for, say you want to be a mechanical engineering intern, or you want to just figure out how to get a job in that sector in general, then you should be searching for mechanical engineering position, mechanical engineering intern on Glassdoor. For example, Hamza lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. I live in Wilmington, Delaware. I'm pretty close to the Philadelphia market, Washington, D.C. market. And so I would type in Philadelphia civil engineer, Philadelphia mechanical engineer, and just make a list of all the companies that are in my area. And then I would start to look at LinkedIn at the engineers who work for those companies in my city, and then pick a few and send them cold messages and say, hey, I see that AECOM is doing great, because if they're hiring, it means that they're doing great. And most likely if you go to their blog, their social media, their website, you will see projects that they've won in the last 12 months. You will see them in the media about breaking ground, about doing this, about doing that. And if you message one of these engineers and you have some relevance and you have some connection and you have something that you're following about that person's career, about that person's company, then you can build a relationship just over LinkedIn, over email. Download clearbit.com. It's a tool where you could find it's free. You can find the emails of engineers, of anybody, if you type in their company, if their company website. So that's our playbook for getting an internship. If you guys need help getting a real internship, or if you want to do the 1% Engineer remote internship, then go ahead and sign up using the links below. Let's take a couple questions here. Let's see if Hamza, do you have anything to add to that for internship?
I would just say, I guess just putting in the work, really. That's the only thing I can really add to that. But I think you summed it up pretty well.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, Kevin, you got it. Need to stalk the top 5 people and write that you wrote down. Any information on welding engineering, love that, but not a whole lot. You want to look into metallurgy engineering. And then finally, look at a couple more questions here. Do you have all these questions in this document, Hamza?
Yes.
I'm just going to go ahead and take a couple that I see already. Any good mechanical engineering degrees that you know of? Yeah, I mean, any mechanical engineering degree from an ABET accredited school, there's hundreds of them, is pretty good. Engineer guy says Montana is a mechanical engineer. Awesome. Carlos is from Chicago. Yep, I lived in Chicago. I lived in Wicker Park for 2 years. Really cool. Civil engineering and construction. California. Jesus is from there. Mechanical engineer. Awesome. Carlos says, what are some skills I should pick up now that will be useful for civil engineering with a focus on construction? Excel, MicroStation. So interesting question about MicroStation. So you really need to be learning Autodesk AutoCAD for the most part. There are some areas that use MicroStation. Bentley is the software producer of MicroStation. And here in Delaware, that's what the Delaware Department of Transportation uses. So I had to use it. I didn't really like it, but I mean, it's just another drafting tool. Yeah, Rob, we're awesome. Thanks so much. Grant, thanks for being here. Let's get over to Grant's question. Kevin is here. Yeah, awesome. I'm really glad we got these audio things sorted out. That's so funny. We just need to figure that out a little bit faster. So, okay, guys, let's get over to Grant Waldy's first question. Grant and I, we worked together for 4 years, almost 4 years. Yeah, I think it was like 4 years and 3 years and 9 months, Grant. But in Vancouver, British Columbia, I had an awesome opportunity. I was really fortunate to be able to study abroad or work abroad and be basically an expatriate working in one of the best cities in the world, which is Vancouver, British Columbia. We worked on some massive bridge projects. Usually I was doing the planning and the forecasting for those with that forecasting team, and Grant was a part of the bridge inspection team, pretty much ran the business division. That's why he's so successful in his career. And I think Grant's probably making like $140,000 or $150,000 a year, because I know when you told me you were making 120 many years ago, Grant, but he's killing it. So he's got a lot of good insight. Grant, go ahead and check out Grant Waldy. You'll find his website, his book. He wrote a book about how you can essentially study for your own MBA yourself at home. And maybe you guys should check that out. But he's got a couple good questions here. If you're just arriving, 128 people have stopped by and only 17 likes. So if you're here, if you're one of the 25 people here right now, hit the like button. Tap that like button real gently, okay? And we can get more people to check this out in their live stream. So Grant says, how important is it to have non-engineering interests? Does my whole life need to be math, physics, engineering, Lego? Yeah, great question, Grant. So Grant is a really good person to ask this question. I really like it because one of the funny things that Grant used to always tell me is really good advice, but we had a really cool office that was relatively young and relatively engaged in fun things and community things. And whenever Grant early on, Grant would say, whenever people ask you how was your weekend, have something to say. Don't be boring. Be someone who's also working on your personal life and your social life and your hobbies and your interests, because that's what makes you a better communicator. That's what makes you a relatable individual. That's what sort of galvanizes your other skills outside of engineering. It may make you more creative. It may make you better in lots of other ways. So you really do need to push outside of engineering and physics and math as well. You're going to be a very one-sided professional and one-sided engineer if you don't. So that's a really good question that Grant asked. For example, Grant, he was an avid skier. He liked to travel. He liked to go on all these adventures outside of his engineering career. And then when he was on the bridge inspection trips and things, he was taking all these crazy hikes and traveling to all these places and doing things out of helicopters and flying drones. That's another thing that Grant and I did. We flew this drone for like a whole year or more and built this portfolio and built up all this momentum and this experience. And then Grant was able to get the permits and the licensing and was able to really amplify his career in civil engineering and in bridge inspection because of the things that he was doing outside of the office. So that was really cool. I think that's really important. Hamza, you do a series of things outside of your engineering career as a student there at UNC Charlotte. I'm sure you have something to add to this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of like the techniques on how to communicate, it's like a lot of people, what they do is they close the loop when somebody asks them a question, or they just give like a standard autopilot response. We all do it from time to time. Like, for example, how are you doing? Good. I'm good. You guys ever hear that a lot? And I'm sure you guys have done it before, but it's horrible. You guys shouldn't be saying that, because you guys should just test this out. Next time when somebody asks you, hey, how are you doing? Say, I'm doing amazing. Thank you very much. And actually like try to feel excited and just bring that out there and have a smile on your face. Watch how well that interaction goes. Watch what happens to them. It will make a difference. And as far as closing the loop is concerned, one of the things people do is when somebody asks them a question like, hey, where are you from? Charlotte. That's it. What do you do? I'm an engineer. What are your hobbies? I have no hobbies, or whatever. Like, it's like these one word or couple word responses that people are saying. And what's happening is like it closes the loop, and what you're doing is you're not allowing for somebody else, you're not allowing for the conversation to progress, you're not building rapport with somebody else. And it just makes it harder for the other person to help to build a connection with. So what you do rather instead is something like, hey, what do you do? So right now I'm a mechanical engineer, but to be honest, I don't want to be a mechanical engineer. I want to start a business one day. And it makes it easier for the other person to prompt the next question. So the next question is, why do you want to start a business? Well, I want to start a business because I like freedom. Da, 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 da. And the next question, the next question, the next question. But yeah, that's all I have to say to that.
Yeah, it's totally true. I mean, you need things to talk about in the office. You need things to think about when people ask you those questions, even when you're doing an informational interview or you are setting yourself up for an internship or even at a networking event or at a club function, society function, organization, engineering organization function. Say you're with your senior design team. I mean, if anybody, you need other things that you're working on outside of engineering. You can't just be a bookworm. That's why people don't want to hire people who have a 3.7 GPA, who don't have any sort of extracurriculars and any sort of other interest. You really do need to be doing those things. And not only to have things to talk about and to be working on your other skills outside of engineering, but honestly, I really am glad that Grant asked this question because it triggered a perfect example of how the time that you can be spending outside of engineering can truly amplify your time within engineering. So with that being said, I'm going to save Grant's second question because he gave us 3 really awesome questions to begin and get over to Shenley's question. How do I land an internship with no experience for civil engineering? We've already talked about internships quite a bit, and then we're going to just refer to the beginning part of the video. We're going to try to figure out what's the timestamp for that and maybe reference that. But we talked about internships at the very beginning of this stream. So we've decided today that whenever we get questions about internships, we're just going to refer to that. And then also go ahead and sign up for the remote internship in the links below. There's a Google form, sign up. There's 25 engineers that are signed up already. We think we're capping it at 50. So if you don't get in there tonight, there's a good chance that it's going to be closed by the time you open the form tomorrow. So make sure you apply. Anthony says, I'm a 13-year-old, want to know how to become an engineer to make vehicles. This is really good. So the way I want to answer Anthony's question, we talked about this really briefly. He's probably gone already because he's 13. It's probably bedtime already. But really, this is how you need to be thinking about it. Is you need to be thinking about what your interests are and what you want to be doing, and then pick that type of engineering based on that. Honestly, he is thinking about it already in the right fashion. So the thing that we help people the most is the thing that we help them with the most is picking the right major. And there's a lot of anxiety around this, and maybe this is a good opportunity for actually talking. I'm looking at the playback here, you laughing at that thing, bedtime. But here's the best way to pick the major. So I wish I had the ability to bring up this figure last minute, but I just made this figure that sort of shows all of the engineering majors, and it shows the big 3 and then sort of the multidisciplinary other, 6, 7 engineerings. But basically, guys, you need to consider your skills and your interests and where they align with the big 3, those being mechanical, electrical, and civil engineering. Those are the only ones that have over 3,000 engineers, 300,000 engineers employed in America. We just use that for reference, by the way. So if you're in another country, I'm sure that it's eerily similar to the distribution in America, unless you're heavily saturated on oil or pharmaceuticals or some other type of industry that's making it such that you have far more one type of engineering. For example, if you're from the Middle East, then petroleum engineering, chemical engineering is very popular. But otherwise, those are the big 3, okay? And then outside of that, industrial engineering is quite big, but that is really for engineers who aren't as good as the theoretical math, want to look at a system-based approach, want to communicate with humans a little bit more. I find it very interesting that the diversity within industrial engineering across the board with many variables is a lot higher, so that's really cool. I think that's a good sign, to be honest. So it's a little bit more flexible. You don't just have to be raw math and analytical person to be a good industrial engineer. And then you have all the other things that come after that. You have aerospace engineering. There's about 65,000 aerospace engineers in America. You have environmental engineering. There's about 55,000 engineers in America. And then you get into the materials engineering, 28,000, chemical engineering, 33,000, biomedical engineering, 19,000. These are much smaller, but still you have these niches and these areas where if you figure out what you like first, you can then potentially choose a more niche or sub-discipline. For example, aerospace and biomedical. You could be a mechanical engineer or an electrical engineer and end up in those fields. But if you are absolutely into aerospace engineering, check out our video with Abir Achi about aerospace engineering. She went right for it. Didn't get a mechanical or an electrical. She was an aerospace engineering undergrad, and then she was an aerospace engineering master's degree, and she's loving it working for her company. I think she's with Lockheed or Northrop, one of the big, I can't remember. To me, they're basically the same company. Which one was it? Do you remember?
Northrop.
Yeah, they're very cool. So that's how you think about picking the right major. That's how I'm going to choose to take Anthony's question. So do you have anything to add to that about like how you chose mechanical engineering, Hamza?
I mean, honestly, I just had to finish my degree, so the only thing I would say is like create a list of things that you're interested in, and then just, I guess, kind of pick one. I can't really give good advice on this, honestly.
Okay, sounds good. 1 second, bringing up the other questions. I just sent you some stuff on Slack, Hamza. So let's go over to Krish Patel's. I want to take computer engineering, but I'm interested in hardware and software. Well, that's what a computer engineer is. So great that you're looking into the right type of avenue already. So essentially, computer engineering is the intersection of electrical engineering with computer, hardware, software integration, and computer science. Okay, so you can't get away with just being a hardware engineer. You can't get away with just being somebody who is going to work with electrical systems within computer engineering. You need to really cross. Those are the big three. Computer software integration, or hardware software integration, mixed with electrical engineering, mixed with computer science. There's arguably even more computer science and computer engineering than electrical engineering, but really, computer engineering is a subset of electrical engineering. I was just recording the video of what do computer engineers do, so I hope you can't wait for that. But the two people who invented the first digital computer, both of them were electrical engineers. Okay, it was in 1939. It was a professor at Iowa State College, now Iowa State University, and his former grad student named Christopher Berry, I think it was. But they created the Atanasoff Berry computer in 1939. They replicated it in 1997. This team of engineers, it took them $350,000 in 4 years to do what these two electrical engineers did in the late 1930s that went on to create the computer engineering industry. So just want to point out how close it is to electrical engineering with a closer seat next to computer science. And it is a really good field that I think is one to be considered if you are a little bit more into the hardware and the software integration element, whereas electrical engineers, they potentially could work in electricity and magnetism. You can't really work in power. If you're a computer engineer, a lot of electrical engineers end up going into power. Certainly, you could end up working in robotics. You could work in signals and controls, computer vision, quantum computing. These are things that computer engineers can work on. So Krish Patel, I think you're in the absolute right avenue for what you're interested in. So let's move on to, I think I'm going to take Grant's second question here. Guys, go ahead and hit that like button. 190 engineers have stopped by. 28 of you are here right now. If you haven't hit that like button, go ahead, because of the 71,000 people who are subscribed to this channel, the only way that it comes into your newsfeed if you hit that like button and incorporate yourself into the chat as much as possible. So thanks so much. Welcome to the 1% Engineer Show, where we empower young engineers to rise to the top 1% of your career. Join our Discord channel, our Discord server with 950 engineers. This is Hamza Waheed, our Director of Operations. He's designing the remote internship. It's his idea. It's his project. We think we're going to make it a platform one day, but we need you to pilot it. So go ahead and find the links in the description below so that you can sign up. There's about 25 people already signed up. We think we're capping it at 50. So don't miss out. If you wait until tomorrow to click the link and enter the 2-minute form, it's probably too late. Get over to these next questions here. Let's see here. So Carlos Bravo, what are some skills I should pick up for that are useful for civil engineering with a focus on construction? Did we already answer that? Yeah, I think we did, because he talked about microstation. That's already answered. I need to cross that off. Also here, what do we got here? Rob says, what inspired you to start your YouTube channel? How do you get over the fear of putting yourself out there? What's something you wish you knew before starting? Cool answer. So I'm going to try to make this as applicable to you guys as possible, because not everybody's going to start a YouTube channel. Not everybody's going to put themselves out there one day. But basically, I encourage all of you, just like we talked about with Grant's first question, is to work on a project and to work on a hobby, work on some side hustle skill set that is going to amplify your career. And I didn't know where this was going to take me or what was going to happen or how it was going to help my career, but I was always in some sort of engineering mentorship role, and I was getting the same questions over and over and over and over again. And I just realized that I had this triangulation of skills where I liked being a mentor, I was a good enough communicator, and I could make videos because I had started a video business with a lot of help from Grant doing all this drone stuff back in the day. And it was just the time was right to do a YouTube channel and to help people, and it is really cool to build a community and do things like that. So that was what it was. So I really encourage you guys to just do something and start something and work on something that you think is fun and cool and can galvanize your skills and something that's going to really help you in your career. And so, Rob, for example, this blog, Rob Torres is going to be working on an aerospace engineering blog and content series, and then we're also going to turn it into videos talking about how to get a job at SpaceX and things like that. So I'm really excited that you can sort of follow in the footsteps and do the same. So, Hamza, do you have anything to add about that? It's kind of like a very similar questions to Grant's, is doing things outside of your career to amplify where you're headed in life.
Yeah, I mean, as far as putting yourself out there, it really comes down to like understanding your life is so short. You know, if you talk to people who are 70, 100 or whatever, they literally say it's like life is so short, things just fly by like that. And it's like, if you ever talk to these people, a lot of times what they talk about is like all the stuff that they regret doing and whatnot. And you don't want to be that person in the grave that's like, man, I should have just started this business. What would have happened if this happened? Or what would have happened if this other thing happened? The other thing to understand is like, a lot of times we think that people are judging us, or people are like, yeah, I would say judging us, but in reality, a lot of times people are just stuck in their own issues and in their own head and whatnot, that it's like, whatever you do is so insignificant. And it's also like, even if they do notice it, like within 10 seconds or whatever, it's like, oh, that was weird. Anyways, So I would just say try to drop it. And then the other thing to understand is like, you want to play a bigger game. A lot of times when you play a bigger game in whatever it is that you're trying to do, these smaller, lower level issues, because that's kind of what this is to some extent. And I'm not trying to like say that, oh, you're a bad person for having this issue, because many people have it. It just kind of solves itself when you start playing a bigger ball game.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I just realized that your hoodie is very on brand, Hamza. I really like that. This is great. I'm going to go ahead and take Kevin's question here. Kevin, who is Keviki Penchel, who's on the chat right now. I love that like bitter cold emoji. That's really cool. So favorite book. We talked about favorite book on stream here a couple times, Hamza. And as you guys know, I get a couple book questions here and there because the back of the set is a book list. So last time our answers were, let's give different answers, Hamza. So last time, I'll let you tell yours, but mine was, my number one book is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, which talks about things within communication and being likable, and it's really like a networking and really like a social skills and a communication book. And it really changed my life about listening and making things about the other person. Like when you talk to somebody about getting you an opportunity or a job or this or that, you have to frame it in terms of what they're trying to figure out and what they want and what can help them. For example, when you reach out to an employer about a situation, you change the language from like, oh, I need a job, to like, hey, this is what I can help you with. This is who I am. These are my skills. And here's how I can accelerate your team. So that book is really monumental in how I saw the world.
Reading it right now, it's great.
Yeah, it's a good, yeah, you're reading it right now. And Hamza, I know that you were like, yeah, I just mentioned a book last time, and it was a good one that I just saw like the front of a bookstore the other day. But
Atomic Habits.
Yeah. Go ahead and talk about Atomic Habits really quickly.
Basically, Atomic Habits, it's a book about like how do like elite level people train? Like how do you train or build your craft in such a way that you actually do it and you actually make progress consistently? And there's many things that the book talks about. One of the big things is like you want to make it as easy as possible to do the thing, because discipline and willpower is very fleeting. And we have such a finite amount of discipline and willpower within a day that if you try to like muster it up every single time, it's just not going to work. So you have to set up your environment in such a way in order to do that. And This book I haven't read yet, but I think it's a good recommendation to make nonetheless, and I think it's still a good book either way. It's called The Winner Effect. Basically, the idea here is it talks about the psychology of being a winner and how do you create that psychology in your own life. So, for example, one of the things that you can do is you set smaller goals and then you try to accomplish those smaller goals, and then you accomplish the smaller goals in succession. And what tends to happen is, in terms of your physiology and your psychology, you start taking on more aggressive goals. Basically, you need to have more success than failure, because if you have too much failure, your brain's just gonna pump a bunch of cortisol and whatnot into your body, and you're just gonna be like, no, I don't want to do this.
It's funny that somebody just said Power of Habit, because I have that book around here right now. I can't find it, but yeah, that's exactly right. And Atomic Habits, it really makes me think of, I'm not going to try to find it too much on screen. I know it's in this stack somewhere. It's around. But what Atomic Habits makes me think of is the 1% rule. So if you guys were, which is ironic that we're on the 1% Engineer Show, but the 1% rule is if you, I don't know if they talk about this in the book, but essentially
They do.
yeah, exactly. So if you work on something for, if you make 1% improvement on something or everything, ideally in your life, every single day for 365 days, you're about 37 times better at the end of a year because of compound interest, compound acceleration, compound growth. And so little tiny changes and little tiny enhancements every single day along the way can really make a big impact. The second best book, I think, that you guys can check out is this one right here. It's So Good They Can't Ignore You, or Good to Great. Cal Newport and both Jim Collins are amazing authors who have some really good books, and they're people who especially Cal Newport has a lot. I think 5 New York Times bestsellers.
I'm going to recommend that book.
Yeah, this is a really good book. He's got How to Get Straight A's and How to Become an Awesome Student and things like that. He's a professor. I always get it wrong. George Washington or Washington University. It's George Washington, isn't it? Georgetown. Yeah, I did that last week too. But those are the best books. So very awesome. Let's go ahead and smash the like button, guys, because there have been, let's see here, 240 people who have stopped by and only 25 likes. Only 10% of the people who stop by like the stream. Most people stay for about 4 minutes. So make sure you hit that like button, and we can get to more of these questions. So let's see here. Let's go through a little blitz round and clear some of these questions. So Guitar Guy, do big companies strictly hire from top universities? Absolutely not. So the one reason why, if you have the grades and you have the Rolodex, does it get into Harvard or one of the 8 Ivies, Stanford, MIT, is the community after, what they call the Rolodex, okay? So you can get access to some career opportunities and good things in your life just because you went to Harvard. So that's the reason. But otherwise, big companies don't really care about that. You might be able to get into Google and Facebook and these tech startups a little bit easier, but honestly, no, they care about performance and results-based internships. So it's not even going to help you that much. So to answer your question directly, no, it doesn't really matter. Go to a good enough school, but you don't need to go to a top university.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Good. I'm just going to blast through lightning round. Add anything that you want.
Yeah, Elon Musk, like, I remember somebody on Twitter was like boasting about his Harvard degree, and then Elon Musk responded back saying, I can hire somebody from, like, education does not mean you went to a fancy school or whatnot. I can hire somebody from Harvard to do my stuff for me. But at the end of the day, like, oh man, forgot the saying. But basically what Elon Musk was trying to say is your Harvard degree doesn't really mean anything if you're not going to use it and you're not going to apply it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. No, that's exactly right. And by the way, I see Grant in the chat who want to plug his website one more time. I don't know, Grant, if you can link a website. You probably can't if you're not me in the chat. So why don't you go ahead and email it to me? I'll keep my email open, and if I can, I will link your website, which he has a list of awesome MBA program books that he's gone through. I think it's over 100. But if you email that to me right now, Grant, with hello@jakevoorhees.com, any of you can email me right now. I'll plug it into the chat. We can talk about the books that you mentioned. So Jesus says, what type of internship should I look for within the field of mechanical engineering? We talked about this a little bit already, so you need to be self-aware, and you need to analyze your interests and your skills and where you want to go in your life and your career. And that's where you should take your mechanical engineering journey, because you could really go anywhere you want within mechanical engineering. And so you kind of, the world is your oyster, but you need to identify where you want to go and then go test it, feel it, try it out, and get internships, get research assignments, go and talk to more people, do informational interviews, go to the job fairs that are more suitable for those types of career avenues, and you're going to be fine.
Do the job posting online and just figure out what skills they want and just work back.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Carlos Bravo says, how do you manage to stay productive in a time where days seem to be so monotonous? Yeah, what a good question. So I really like these COVID-related questions because everybody has a different life this year in 2020. So I think that there's a whole bunch of things. Everybody's had issues with mental health, depression, anxiety, worry, and things like that. Even myself, I've taken some more breaks off the channel and went through a period of like 4 weeks without an upload in the September area. I think that's when it was, September or June. I can't remember. It was a weird time around my birthday in the middle of the year, and then we hit, I think it was mostly June actually. We hit like it was like August, September. We took like a month off because I was not in the best place mentally, and mostly because it's weird. Even look at what just happened. I want to make a video about Tony Hsieh, the computer science graduate from Harvard who started Zappos and sold it for $350 million to Amazon.com. But he had a lot of challenges with mental health this year, and he got caught in a house fire, and a lot of people think that he was in such a weird mental state and he was using a lot of drugs and abusing substances that he was injured in this house fire, not because it was a bad house fire, but because he was in just a bad state mentally, and he lost his life because of that, mostly because of a mental health tragedy. They're calling it a mental health tragedy. And as you see, all of these elite professionals and celebrities, they have it all the notoriety, the success, and the money, and the fame, and they still aren't happy because we do have a big mental health challenge out there in the world, and COVID is not helping any of it. So how do you stay productive? I think what you need to do is balance. You need to become self-aware and really just sort of check in, do mental health checks, and make sure that you're taking breaks on things and you're really evaluating how you feel. I really have become a good fan of journaling and of meditation and making sure that you're giving yourself the self-care that you need and making sure that you're checking in. I think mental health challenges, myself included, depression, anxiety, and these types of things, they can propagate because you're not allowing yourself to perceive the dials. Let me give you an analogy. If your car has an issue, there's a light that comes on, right? There's a dial that goes all the way to the end. There's something that beeps, right? I would never have a clue that something is wrong with my car if they didn't have all these support systems and these things to warn me that something is about to go wrong that's more severe than what's happening right now. We don't have those on our human body. All we have is we can listen to simple systems about how we feel and what's going on when we wake up and what we journal about. And you really have to allow yourself to actually, you got to check in and see how you are. And then once you identify that like things, I'm feeling a little weird or, things aren't going great, you usually can tell after a while, but give yourself the opportunity to get the momentum back. Do little things. Go to the gym. Start cleaning your room. Just do things to start the snowball of getting productivity and ambition back, and spend more time around loved ones and doing some fun things. And again, take a few extra breaks than usual just to start to get back on the horse and get momentum again. And once you have momentum is a beautiful thing, because that's kind of the point. Once you get going again, it's really hard to stop the train. And so this is why a lot of people don't like to take any days off and have any bad days, because if you don't take any days off, you can't really have a bad day. You just keep on pushing. But that's one of the other challenges, is you need to make sure you don't get burned out. Everybody has an experience where they pushed a little too hard, and then they had to take a couple weeks off of intense studying and labor or work or whatever. Hamza, what are ways that you make sure that you are, staying balanced and mostly how do you manage to stay productive in a time where things seem to be the most monotonous during COVID? That's the core question by Carlos Bravo. Anything to add there, Hamza?
Yeah, I think what it is just you just kind of have to force yourself to do it in a way, and like it's like this type of empathy with yourself where you're like, I acknowledge the emotion that you're feeling, but you need to tell yourself, like, look, if I don't get this done, I'm just not going to achieve my goals, and my goals matter more than what I'm feeling in the moment. The other thing I would like to say as far as like happiness or anything like that is a lot of people, like, they train their synaptic pathways in their brain to say, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when I get this car. I'll be happy when I make $1 million. I'll be happy when I get this hot girl into my life or this hot guy or whatever. But what's happening is they're taking the goal of happiness and it becomes a moving target. And what'll end up happening is when they achieve the goal, they won't be happy. They'll be like, okay, I think I need to get something else. And when they achieve that goal, they'll be like, I need to get something else. But rather, what you need to do is you need to say, I'm happy now, and I'm gonna make a decision to be happy. Like, make a decision, just laugh throughout the day. Make a decision to just not take things seriously. That's what I would say to that.
Yeah, I love that. No, that's exactly right. I think a lot of things in life is mindset and attitude, and that can really help out everything else. I think let's get over to our, I guess, but when we get our first master's degree question, we'll go into that master's degree content, and then we'll move right past it. We're not getting any questions tonight. We'll probably just ask. It'll be Carmen now asking for it. So Rob Torres, thanks again, Rob, for being here. Go ahead and check out Rob Torres on LinkedIn and friend him. He is essentially on his way to joining the team, working on aerospace engineering, how to get a job at SpaceX type of project. So it says, should I feel bad for not making it to an Ivy League school, asking for a friend? We already said how insignificant an Ivy League school is. Yeah, you have this amazing Rolodex, and you have this situation to have access to far more powerful people than you otherwise would outside of an Ivy League institution. But honestly, it's not a big deal. Like, companies don't really care. It's more about who you know and what you've done and the experience that you have and how you communicate and how you come off in your interviews and things like that. Like, that's what's important, guys. So don't worry about some Ivy League situation, Rob. Tell your friend that they don't need to worry about that stuff at all. So great question, though. Rafe says, what is required from a fresh mechanical engineering graduate for a job? I mean, that's a really open-ended question and kind of tough for me to answer, because depending on where you're from and you know what type of industry you're trying to get into, what is required is a little bit of, you know, it could be a considerably different answer across the board. But I think the things that you need to look at in terms of getting a fresh mechanical job for a fresh graduate is to reach out to the people who you know and keep in touch and do informational interviews. And that's the way to get that job in mechanical engineering. So how do you do this? Every single person that you talk to at a networking event or at some sort of function or any sort of business card that you get throughout the year, you need to save it, and you need to email those people once a quarter and every 3 months, if not more frequently. If you can do it once every 4 to 6 weeks, and that's great. But keep in touch with all these people and conduct informational interviews along the way. What's an informational interview? Great question. Go ahead and check out our video about that, because it's not something that they talk about in undergraduate or in career planning in general. It's something that you're going to have access to, something you're going to be exposed to after you start your career, and that's kind of my situation. But what it is that you email those people that you met at career fairs and things like that, and you are going to ask to come in and talk to them about their job, okay? And they're going to be courting you as well, and they're going to be people who, or they're going to be some sort of professional who's interested in you as well as you're interested in them, and they're sort of figuring out if you're going to be the right fit for an intern or a graduate level staff engineer position. And so if you do these things with several engineers, I like the idea of doing it with 5 or more, maybe 10, you're guaranteed to get a entry-level position as you exit university. So that's what you need to do. I can't really answer your question, is what is required, but in terms of a tactic list or some sort of overall strategy for getting a job, I like the informational interview strategy. Let's clear out a couple more questions here, Hamza. So could you talk about fourth revolution industrial and how it can change the vision for a mechanical engineer? So I just want to double check and make sure that, like, the fourth industrial revolution is all AI, right? Yeah, exactly. AI, machine learning, probably the Internet of Things. It says fourth industrial revolution is ongoing automation of traditional manufacturing and industrial practicing using modern smart technology. I mean, it's just, it is what it is. I don't think we need to use terminology about it, but basically, I mean, how can it change the vision for a mechanical engineer? I mean, essentially, I just did a script for mechanical engineering versus electrical engineering, and the one big difference between the two is that mechanical engineering has mechanics in it instead of the electronic side and the control side. And yeah, you have all that, but you don't necessarily have to have the coding and the programming and the connection to as much automation and signals and controls. And therefore, I think that electrical engineering is one of the more powerful avenues that you can go down. And so I think that as a mechanical engineer, you need to know about this. And you need to certainly adopt to more coding, and you need to be looking at mechatronics and the intersection between mechanical and electrical, and looking how you can get into things that you know are going to be more relevant into the future, so that you can make sure that the fourth industrial revolution doesn't leave you behind. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Hamza.
There'll be a different set of tools also being used that will incorporate AI and machine learning when it comes to like product design and product testing.
Sure.
I think I read an article. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I think I read an article where they said that they were going to use a program to just prototype and test everything and not actually build something in person. And that would accomplish all the stuff that they need in order to launch a product into the market. That might likely become a reality, stuff like this.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, I think making sure that you guys are staying on top of trends and making sure, like, I really like trendhunter.com and Future Festival. It's made by the same person, Jeremy Goucher, really cool Canadian engineer. So that's gonna keep you ahead of the curve. Caron says, yeah, still no I'm waiting for some of these master's degree questions so we can get into our regular scheduled content about that. But Caron says, what are some of the skills that I should pick up with the university while studying civil engineering? We'll just lightning round this. So you need to make sure that you're good at AutoCAD. You need to make sure that you're really good at Excel. So you're going to use a lot of Excel for database management and scheduling. And, you know, Excel is one of the best programs you can use as a civil engineer. I use that for all my jobs and all my career aspects, whether it was my research assignments in grad school or the macro forecasting that we were doing in Vancouver, or even the traffic engineering and the signal design and the safety elements that we're working on here on the East Coast of the States. We're always using a lot of Microsoft Excel. And so I think that's a really good skill. And then finally, MATLAB is something that you could use a little bit less of that as a civil engineer. But if you're getting into database management or any sort of research and development type things, that's a good skill. And then finally, building information modeling and bridge information modeling, BIM and BRIM. I used to work at a company called Panoni. Check them out. They're based out of Philadelphia, have 35 offices up and down the East Coast, but they were big on bridge information modeling. And what that is creating a smart model of a bridge so that every bolt and every piece and that every single component within this design has intelligence within the model. So you could click on a bolt and you can see the serial number for the bolt, and you could see its mass, and you could see its length, and you could see how it integrates into the other parts and how many there were, and you could isolate it as its own layer and things like this that were really powerful tools for the future of civil engineering. So these are skills that I really think you should look at. Guys, go ahead and hit that like button one more time.
Soft skills for sure.
What's that? Go ahead.
I said soft skills. It should be said.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even talk about that. Why don't you talk about the soft skills real quick, Hamza? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think one thing I would like to say is that I was talking to my dad. So my dad is a mechanical engineer for Cummins, and I was asking him, he's like, so with my generation that's coming in, what are the challenges and good stuff and bad stuff that you see? One of the biggest things that he's noticing is people in my generation just want to be in a computer all day. They don't want to actually get out. They don't want to get their hands dirty when it comes to making stuff. That's just not a productive way to have a good engineering career. It's like you gotta know the computer part, yes, but you gotta do the actual hands-on stuff. So what my dad's been saying is many of the engineers that are coming in about my age and whatnot, they're good with the data analysis side of things. But when it comes to a lot of their social skills and whatnot, it's starting to become very poor. An example my dad gave was there was a person working with another person on a project, and they were right next to each other. So like he was here and then this other person was here. The person over here literally texted the person over here on his phone when he could have literally just gotten up and said, hey, I need help with this. That is a serious issue that, like, why are you not able to walk up to somebody and ask this question? So I'm starting to really like believe that social skills are critically important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that communication and really all of like the empathetic sort of emotional intelligence type of skills are really going to change the game for you going forward. Because if you have the best ideas and you can't communicate them and you can't be likable and you can't climb the ladder within your company, then it's not going to be great for you. If you have the best sort of results for a design and you can't communicate them, you can't get up in front of even your boss, your team, you can't present them, you're not going to have the best opportunities. And if you
nobody wants to help you, it doesn't matter as well.
Yeah, exactly. If you can't connect at an event, if you can't network well, if you can't write emails properly, if you can't write reports properly, so communication, verbal and written communication, become some of the most powerful skills outside of the raw engineering skills, particularly within civil, because it's so team oriented and they're big projects and you're not just working on some code in a vacuum and things like that. So that's exactly what you need to be doing as a civil engineer. Guys, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe if you're new here. Join the Discord server. Guys, for the 30 of you here, do you have an internship for 2021? If you don't, we can help you get that. We have 2 opportunities for you. The remote engineering internship, the remote 1% engineer internship, where we are building that. It's Hamza's idea, Hamza's project. We're building a mechanical and electrical engineering internship. We'll let civils in. We think we're also building, see how a bunch of people just popped in after more likes just streamed in? We think we're also building a chemical engineering internship, but we're also going to be picking up the phone and making calls about getting you an internship. We have a South African engineer on the team named Ewan, who his professor said, hey guys, just upload a 1-minute video and your CV, and I'm going to try to get you a job. And 13 students did, and he got 9 of them virtual internships over the fall or for the summer or something like that. But 9 out of 13 people got internships. So if you're looking for an internship, make sure you hit that link in the description below, and then you can be potentially eligible for some sort of internship support. There's about 25 people who are signed up. We're potentially stopping the list at 50. So if you don't sign up tonight, there could be none left. Thomas says, do you know if engineering is the right fit? I've been struggling with some classes in mechanical engineering undergraduate program, but I don't want to give up because it's difficult. So how far along, Thomas, are you? Because if you are in, say, the second semester of freshman year, or if you are in your first semester of sophomore year, then you could potentially be in the wrong spot. But if you're in your 4th semester or your 5th semester, yeah, you have made it through a lot of the meat and potatoes and the hard stuff of an engineering curriculum. And so, yeah, you should stick it out because you made it through the hard stuff, and it's kind of downhill from there. How do you know if engineering is the right fit? So if you're good enough at math, every once in a while, I get these ridiculous questions like, oh, should I still be an engineer if I'm not great at math? And the answer is no. Like, you just can't. I mean, you have to be theoretical and spatial in order to be an engineer. And then ultimately, you have to identify which type of career avenue do I want to go down, which type of occupation, which type of engineering sort of sub-discipline am I going to be happy with? Because if you want to do something that you cannot achieve with an engineering major, there's very few things that are on this list, but sometimes there is a specific major that is more suitable for what you want to do, and it's not engineering. Again, I do think that's rare because engineers really can do whatever they want. You can get into law school, you can do a startup, you can go into business, you can go into whatever you want as long as you build up the skill sets, the reputable skill sets that can align with that career trajectory. And that's what's nice about engineering is we're problem solvers. We can learn and figure out how to solve a problem and what we need to do to get us in the next step. And that's why you have a lot of these entrepreneurs who are engineers. Jeff Bezos, engineer. Carlos Slim, engineer. Elon Musk, physics major. To me, basically an engineer. The difference between a physics major and an electrical engineering major is they could kind of cross-pollinate if they want. So great question. Let's see here. Great question, Thomas. Dragon says, how to learn skills during college. I asked them to say what type of skills and add some context there before we answer that question. Taha says, hey, hey Jake, I just finished my first semester in college. What's the best thing to do during the break? So great question. We did a video called What Should Engineers Do in Free Time? And I'm going to link that video in the chat below. Nice. We got almost 10,000 views on that video. But I think, Hamza, you helped in a little bit of the planning for that video. Why don't you take a little bit of that question? And if you can't remember what we talked about, then what are some things that engineers can be doing in their free time right now?
Yeah, I would definitely be saying informational interviews, reaching out to people and whatnot. You can start your own content. One thing that I've like as I was making the remote internship, I was kind of work has some pretty decent projects that you could put on your resume that you don't even have to reach out to the people, but it's like if you just copy and paste the problem statement and just make sure that you record everything, like in terms of the SolidWorks files or the PSpice files or whatnot. You could probably show that to an employer and add that as a project. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, good additions there. Love that. Let's see here. Taha says, oh no, we just answered that question. There's another one. Hey, Hamza, if a civil engineer can work as an environmental engineer. Yeah, absolutely. So I love that you're getting direct questions right here.
Your expertise, but yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's totally fine. But you already know this. So there's 5 subsets of civil engineering, and those are kind of in this order: structural, transportation, geotechnical, environmental, and then coastal, or sort of like water resources. Coastal engineering is a little similar. But yeah, so there's 55,000 environmental engineers employed in America alone, and I think there's like 310 or 315,000 civil engineers. So, for every civil engineer, 20% of that job market also exists for an environmental engineer. So yeah, civil engineers, that is actually the path to becoming an environmental engineer. Technically, my degree at the University of Delaware is called Civil and Environmental Engineering. They kind of put it together because they're very similar. And again, environmental is technically a subset. It would kind of be like asking, like, hey, can an HVAC engineer or can a mechanical engineer work as HVAC, or can an electrical engineer work as a power engineer? You're technically asking about a subset within the greater discipline. It's very rare just to find an environmental engineering curriculum. Yeah, you can study that in grad school for a master's level, but yeah, that's exactly what you want to do if you want to do environmental engineering. Kevin says, how do I build communication skills? Well, do it exactly what you're doing. So Kevin is on the team, and he's in situations where he can network with more people, have team meetings, and be a little bit more communicative in his journey. I would also say that any opportunity to go to networking events and go to job fairs and put yourself in more serious sort of higher profile communication ecosystems, like staying after class and talking to your professor or asking questions in class. I can't tell you how often I made myself ask a question in class with a room of 125 people just to do it, just to make myself scared and just to like go through the reps. And now when I'm at a conference, I have no problem raising my hand in front of a whole room, and sort of what I do is I'll ask a question in order to get people to pay attention to me. Okay, I'll ask a question that makes me sound smart and makes people walk up to me after that question and they want to know me. So I'll sort of and this is the point of engaging with the teacher during class, is you're standing out and you're having this attention on you. And so you're making yourself go through this communication loop where you rinse and you repeat and you get into iterations and you do great over time. That's really how you develop a skill, is you put yourself in more and more experiences in order to force yourself to do it. Otherwise, you can join Toastmasters. There's definitely student versions of Toastmasters in cities and universities. Also, you need to make sure that you take the reins and you can do the presentation, and you can be the sort of communicator with your professional liaisons or adjunct professors for projects. Just always put yourself in that.
Comedy.
Go ahead. Improv. Oh yeah, go ahead. Go up to what's it called? Public mic or whatever. Open mic nights. Yeah, that's what you could do, which is terrifying, by the way. But you always have to put yourself in these situations where you can be up at the mic, literally, and also figuratively.
Throw yourself into the deep end,
Yeah,
essentially.
throw yourself in the deep end and make sure that you're giving yourself all the opportunities you possibly can to do it. Hit that like button, guys. 400 people have stopped by and only 37 have hit the like button because that's how more people fall into the chat. What other questions do we have here? Build communication skills. Great one, Kevin. Really glad that we added that. Any good mechanical engineering books? So the book suggestions that we talked to earlier, we don't really teach technical engineering here. I really don't know about any good mechanical engineering books necessarily. Hamza, you're a mechanical engineer. Do you have anything to add here, or do we really want to just refer to the sort of self-help? And
No, I have nothing to add.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add about a good mechanical engineering book. I don't know what that would be. I think maybe studying how certain companies have risen within the design space and within the engineering ecosystem, but honestly, I don't think that reading mechanical engineering books is going to make you any better at picking mechanical engineering or being successful. So honestly, I wouldn't worry about that too much. Carlos, I really appreciate how you've been in the stream this whole time. Why don't you send me an email, hello@jakevoorhees.com. A lot of people who they hang out in the stream, I find that, this is how we found Rob Torres and a couple other people, but it shows that you're a part of the community, you're more deeply invested, you're probably ambitious and want to be successful. That's why you're spending far more than average. The average person spends about 4.5 minutes in here tonight, but you've been in here for probably this entire hour. So why don't you send me an email, let me know what you're up to and how I can specifically help you in your career. And if you want to work on a project and be on some sort of trajectory to join the team or get on the internship list, and we'd love to have you. So Carlos Bravo says, any advice for cover letters? Ooh, interesting question. We don't get this question very much. I've had an updated resume, but I have never made a cover letter. Should I make a new one for each application? Hamza, it's okay if you don't have anything to add, but do you want to take a stab at this question before I do, or what do you think? I can't hear you.
You're best at it.
What's that? I think you might have to hold your mic up a little closer sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. Your mic doesn't trigger.
Yeah, basically personalization. But I think you're better suited for this.
Yeah, I think you might have to hold your mic up because your mic is down here, right? It's down here. I don't think you always trigger your mic. So you might want to grab it because you're using the headphones mic, right? Sometimes you go blank. Like I didn't hear that whole thing, but I'll take it. Yeah, okay, so I think that cover letters. So the best way to and make sure I guess my mic is always good because I don't really hear many people saying that it breaks up or whatever. But you sound pretty good. It's just sometimes you'll say like a whole sentence or whatever. Yeah, no problem. I don't think you have to rejoin. I wouldn't do that. I don't know what the thing is going to look like, but go ahead and do it. If you want. Okay, so for your cover letter, to answer your question, Carlos, I think what you need to do is if you can be the most relatable to that company. For example, if you know, again, we talked about this a little bit already, but if you know exactly what that company is working on, what projects they're in the media about, what awards they have, and I think you want the narrative to be in your LinkedIn messages and your emails and in the interview and in the cover letter, all this through line about how this is the company that you want to work for and you've been waiting for this opportunity your entire life, okay? So the more that you know about the company and the more that you can storytell about how you've been following them and how you might have talked to one of the engineers at a job fair and these types of things, that's how you can make a cover letter specific to this one company, okay? And if you can make this cover letter specific to not only that particular role, but that company and that moment in time and whatever the projects that you're working on, but the more specificity and individualism you can use within that cover letter, I think you're going to stand out and it's going to make that person want to give you a call, want to give you a shot at the internship. So Carlos, great question. I think that is one of the ways that you can get in. I can do a couple shout outs. 32 people in here. Love that. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you follow the links below and sign up for the remote internship. Make sure you guys also subscribe. So Maestro, thanks for being here. Avorex, thanks for being here. Taha, really love your questions so far. Kevin, glad you're here. Daz K, love it. Sidharth, love it. Thank you for being here. Paige, awesome questions. Thank you so much. Jesus, love it. Isaiah, glad you're here. Ask a question if you want. Justin R, do you think mechanical engineering is a good choice if you like it? Yeah, I don't know if we... Oh, no, maybe we did get to that question already, but thanks so much for being here, guys. Go ahead and like this live stream. So let's see here. Cover letters. We only have one question in our document, so go ahead and drop new questions into the chat so we can keep this going. Maybe it's a good time to talk about our master's degree content before we get over to Paige's questions.
Yeah, Jake, I think we should just get started.
Yeah, let's talk about master's degree. So last time we streamed, and I think maybe even it was the case in between streams, but we've been getting an incredible amount of questions about master's degrees outside of tonight. And I think the reason is, I graduated 11 years ago in 2009 from University of Delaware with civil engineering, and it was at the peak of a recession just like we are right now, in the middle of a weird year where it's the hardest time in recent history to get a job, to get an opportunity. And so a lot of people are considering master's degrees, going to graduate school, whether they are just graduating or not. It's hard. It's so hard to get opportunities that maybe it's the right time to get a master's degree. So here's what we have to say about that. Essentially, a lot of people, they think that they could have to just pay out of pocket and get more student loans and that sort of thing. So I think that there are plenty of opportunities to go to grad school for free and find a company to either pay for you, or just like I did, you get into what is called a research assistantship or a teaching assistantship. So you technically are employed by the university and you work on either a research project for 2 years, like that's what I was as a research assistantship at University of Wisconsin, or a teaching assistantship where you're a TA and you help a professor with all the grading and some of the lectures, and you probably run a lab and things like that. But you technically are an employee of the university and you're expected to work 30 to 40 hours a week. And then here are the perks that you get on that behalf. You have your full tuition. They call it full tuition remission. So you don't have to pay any tuition. Okay, you're a full-time student, so you have all of those perks. I had a full gym membership. I had a full transportation pass in Madison, Wisconsin. You have all the other perks of an employee. So I had full health insurance. I actually broke my leg while I was a full-time graduate student at Wisconsin, and it was entirely paid for. It was like a $50,000 surgery that was totally covered. Okay, so these are the perks. I only had like a $19,000 a year salary, which is peanuts compared to what I could have been making as a regular full-time staff civil engineer. You get started at like $55,000, maybe $60,000 a year nowadays. And so you need to consider that for opportunity cost. Not only are you, just taking a $19,000 salary, or say you have to take out a loan and you're paying back $10,000 a year on top of, say you get scholarships or grants, but you have to look at the opportunity cost of the money that you would have made. So my opportunity cost to go to grad school, even though I didn't have any costs, the opportunity cost was probably $30,000 to $40,000 times 2 years because I wasn't making that money. You really have to make sure you look at that. Love Grant still being in here. Another great civil engineering book is The Builder's Marvels of Engineering. Oh, this is a good time to talk about Grant's website. Yeah, awesome. So, guys, if you want to look at, we're going to talk about master's degree a little bit more, but I really want to make sure to plug Grant's website. Here is a website, so selftaughtmba.com. I need to just have that memorized so I can plug it a couple times. But go ahead and check out selftaughtmba.com, which is Grant Waldy's website. He has read, isn't it like 135 books? And all about MBA programs, and he has curated his summaries and information within reading these books so that you don't have to. And so check that out for more book information. Grant's a really smart guy, and I think don't you still plan on getting your MBA yourself, Grant, or is that kind of the point of the self-taught MBA? You're going to just totally skip it and that sort of thing. Hamza, do you have anything else to add about what were we mentioning about? No, we're just going to move on to the next question. So do you have anything to add about the last thing? I know I kind of jumped around within the books aspect.
No.
Okay, sounds good. Great. Awesome. So let's go over to Paige's question. Oh, no, we're still talking about master's degrees. I think you have something to add about that potentially. Sorry, I was confusing us, but this is one of the things that if you can get it funded or paid for, or if you can find a company to do it, then sure, I think it's potentially a realistic option for you right now, but you really don't want to go to grad school just to do it because you think you can't get a job, especially if you need to pay for it. It's not really going to amplify your salary in the way you think it is. And you may even do what I did, where you go to grad school and you study something that isn't exactly what you should be doing for the rest of your career. Like, you don't really know. If you're coming right out of engineering, if you're coming right out of undergrad, then you don't really know what you want to do because you haven't worked in enough fields to know what you hate and what you like, and you don't know enough people to help you get into the situations that are going to be good for you. And so sometimes it's worth it to just maybe work in some sort of parallel engineering role and maybe take a technician role or work in something that is adjacent to engineering. And instead of committing to something that's 2 years, especially if you're paying for out of pocket. If you can get a research assistantship or a teaching assistantship, I think that is a really good avenue. Otherwise, just go over to self-taught MBA and learn the things and amplify your skills and get volunteer experience and club and organizational experience, and you will be fine. Let's see here. Paige's question. Do you have anything to add about master's degree, Hamza? What do you think about master's degrees, especially after a mechanical engineering ecosystem? Maybe you can talk about it's a good opportunity to do maybe mechatronics or some of these more advanced degrees that people think they can jump into after electrical or mechanical engineering, but you kind of need to go to grad school or really have positioned yourself properly with internships and research and things like this. What do you have to say about master's degrees right now?
Yeah, I think at this time, at least, people are using the master's degree to kind of delay the inevitable. Like, I think somehow people think that if they get this master's degree, they'll become more marketable in the job market. But I don't think but the reality is that's not quite the situation. And it's not that black and white. And honestly, had you just got into the job market and started working on projects to the side, because it could take you 6 months or a year to get that first job. But if you did some projects to the side while searching for the job, you might even be in a better position, honestly. That's my opinion on it. Yeah. Just don't delay the inevitable.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. You got to just, I don't know, trust your instincts. There's a couple different opportunities that may be best suited, but I love Hamza's suggestion there. So let me make sure that this audio doesn't creep up, and let's get right over to, I'm going to do a couple shout outs real quick. Maestro, thanks for being here. Rob, thanks for the questions. We got 35 people in here right now, which is awesome. Taha, glad you're still here. Grant, really glad you're still here. Tinu, what up? Where are you from? Haven't seen you before in the chat. Awesome that you're here. Avorex, really glad that you're here. Good stuff. So Paige, I hope that answered your question. Let's see here. Rob says, I'm going to do a little crossing off this list here. Rob says, Jake, what is your process to store valuable information? Interesting. For example, you found something that resonates with you. How would you save it, and what's your system? I really like these questions, Rob, because you're kind of going off of the beaten path. Hamza, I'm actually going to have you start this question because I'm trying to curate this new comment so we could have a little more stickiness with some of these links. Don't have to plug this as much, but basically, we were talking about this the other day of doing more content and more information about mnemonic processes and ways to make information stick and ways to use less time in studying and less time in learning and make sure that this stuff is retained in your memory considerably stronger. Do you have anything to add about some tactics for that before I jump into that question?
Yeah, basically, so the way our brains work is we learn through associations, not through like just brute looking at the notes and trying to memorize and just looking at it again and again and again. They've actually done studies on this. It is incredibly inefficient to just, I do need a new microphone. I'm getting a new laptop, so it's whatever. But anyways, it's incredibly inefficient to just look at a piece of paper and just expect your brain to figure it out. It's a very bad path for success. So you need to create associations with different words. So the example I always use is memorizing white cementite for your manufacturing class. So cementite means it's made out of cement, something like that. So what you can do is think cementite, white, sidewalk, cement. It really is that simple in order to memorize some of the stuff. Another tactic is like you can create a story in order to memorize a list of things. So like I remember what I did in my manufacturing class was like we had to memorize the part, like this diagram for sand casting and how that worked. And I basically created a story about like a monster ripping things apart, and that really helped me out. You need to use your creativity as well. And it's tactics like these, that's what's going to help you the most in terms of encoding your memory, stuff like that.
Yeah, 100%. I think that what I typically do with these types of tactics, Rob, is I will utilize more neural connections. Yeah, thanks for that, Hamza. More neural connections than just seeing something. So say you just read a book and you open up a book and you read it. You're only doing one type of neural connection there. You're just doing visual connections, okay? And that's why when you look at something and you read it and then you write it down, you typically have even better ways of memorizing. You have an additional path, an additional medium of fusing those neural connections. And then this is why when you teach it to somebody else, not only have you read it and you've written it down, but then you've spoken it again. You've created this verbal neural connection, and it's even better than just trying to read it. It's part of the reason why when you're learning math, you need to say it and memorize your times tables and memorize the sequences of verbal instructions to do it. You need to see it. You need to have the spatial element where you can take a look. This is why MATLAB and CAD are so good, because you actually see what's going on within the engineering ecosystem. So I love those ways, is creating additional mediums for memorization and memory retention. I think a couple other tactics that are really good for retention is to study and learn properly, okay? So make sure you utilize spaced repetition. Give yourself more time. And if you give yourself more time, say you only can commit 3 hours to learning a new task. If you just spend 3 hours just in one go, you're not really going to figure that out. But if you break it up into 6 sessions of 30 minutes over, 6 days in a row, you're going to crush it. Like, that's the way to do it. Spaced repetition is the more you space it out and the more that you give yourself an opportunity to sleep, fuse those neural connections, do it again. Sleep, fuse those neural connections, do it again. Sleep, right? This is what you need to do. And then finally, I talk about this a lot, but the Pomodoro technique when you're learning, I think, is particularly good. So instead of just sitting there and try to learn something for 8 hours in a row, why don't you do a 30-minute or a 25-minute session, take a 5-minute break. 25-minute session, take a 5-minute break. And then after a 2-hour session of that, take a deeper 30-minute, 45-minute break. And you're really going to maximize the time that you are spending studying and retaining that information and learning something new, rather than just sort of hammering your face into the book and trying to learn this stuff. So really good question, Rob. Really like that. So
Cal Newport has a good book on this, How to Be a Straight A Student. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, love that. We're running out of questions. It could be the internet connection, maybe not microphone. Yeah, I don't know. What's the hardest project y'all have done throughout your field in engineering? I love the y'all. I don't know like the applicability to this question, whether I should take this in terms of like a professional, but it says, what's the hardest project y'all have done throughout your, I don't know if it's a student project type thing. I find it a little bit hard to Taha thinks you need a new mic. Oh, you already responded to that. I find it a little hard to sort of approach this question because I'm not really sure like how to best answer that. But the hardest project, I don't know if they want like the most interesting project to talk about and something cool, or
I think most difficult.
Or the hardest project in university. Yeah, what do you have to say to that? I mean, my university days started 15 years ago, so maybe you have something right off the top of your head. Well, oh yeah, we have Grant's third question too. We never got into his, or was that question 2? Did we never get to Grant's question 2? Oh, the close. So. No, we never did. No, yeah. Didn't. Hamza, do you have anything to add about tough engineering, tough engineering projects? And then we get over to Grant's question 2. I forgot about that. Sorry, Grant. I'm really glad that you're still here and you reminded us. Love it. Go ahead, Hamza.
No, I think we should get to Grant's questions, honestly.
Okay. Just off the top of my head, I will answer the question about projects. So here in Delaware, we have this thing called pumpkin chunkin, okay? And what that is they make a catapult or a cannon, and they shoot this pumpkin like a mile, okay? And in dynamics, we had to use just is civil engineering dynamics. It's perfect class for pumpkin chunkin. And we had to just use an Excel program to essentially design a catapult and calculate, thanks Grant, and calculate the distance and how much force and all of the variables around building like a trebuchet. And that was a really cool project. I don't know if it was that hard, but it was just really cool. And it's maybe one of the most memorable projects that I worked on in my engineering journey, in my undergraduate journey. So I really like Grant's question. This is something that's super applicable to you guys right now because eventually the stupid pandemic is going to disappear and you're going to know how to dress. You're going to need to know how to dress in your engineering office. So Grant Waldy is, for those of you who don't know, there's the 500 people have come and gone. I know it only seems like there's 29 of you who've been here this whole time, maybe 32 of you here the whole time, but there's been 496 engineers who come by for an average of 4 minutes and 40 seconds. So thanks for all of you who have been here. That average time slowly creeps up because, the Rob Torreses and the Grant Waldys and the Carlos Bravos, you guys have been in here for probably 81 minutes straight. Love that. So thank you so much. Yeah, Maestro, I'm really glad that you think engineering is cool. So do I. So Grant's question is, how important are the clothes I wear to work each day? I see people dress like slobs and other people dress sharp. Does it matter? What a good question. And I love that I really know Grant. We haven't worked together in, it's going to be about 4 years, Grant, which is pretty crazy. In the spring, it's been about 3.5 years at this point that it's been since we worked together. But Grant's the type of guy I really like that I know like his mindset and sort of like driver behind answering these or asking these questions, because it really is a great question. Because if you show up every day, and I think back to your team, you don't need to name names, but tall German engineers who, sometimes just dressing a little sloppy and shirt not tucked in and not wearing a tie and a sweater and this sort of thing. Like these sort of things, they do sort of trickle into how you feel about yourself, how people feel about you. And, it makes me think
people
of when
make snap decisions based off of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. We are emotional creatures, and people will make decisions about you. Jeremy Galloway's in here. Thanks so much for being here. I know you're in like every live stream. People will make decisions about you based on your appearance, and people will also make initial thoughts and first impression type decisions around you. And it makes me think of when I was in Vancouver working with Grant Waldy, there was sort of this interim leader of the structural engineering division who I guess was like, it was more of a friend-like relationship, and Grant was kind of running the whole department. But he was like an interim person. He was young, and yeah, he dressed well, but he didn't really do his work that much. And then this German, more senior engineer showed up, and he wore a black suit with a tie and a white shirt every day, and we just knew this guy meant business, okay? And he kind of just walked around graciously and didn't really cause a lot of wake, but he just looked pro. And yeah, exactly. Love that, Grant. He just looked pro. The senior engineer, we just knew that he was going to come in and make change and be a leader. And by 3-4 months in, he was the one sitting in the corner office running the division. And Grant jumped right in and made a great relationship with him, and probably did his best to do everything he could to set a good impression. And the senior engineer that I worked for on the team, I didn't have the best experience. I mean, it was a fantastic experience overall. There were some things that I look back on and would give quite a bit of constructive criticism. But one thing that my team did well in Vancouver is we wore ties and we looked good. And during the winter, even I actually used to wear a sweater just like this, and we would rock the tie with this sweater just to subtly show that we were still wearing the tie. And he was convinced, this man who was 25 years older than us or whatever, was convinced that these things mattered. And when clients showed up to the office and all your team is wearing ties, and just makes them feel safe and secure and like they're dealing with professionals. And so you get judged on how you look, and it affects how you feel about yourself. And this stuff really does matter. So guys, you Gen Z engineers, I know you're reluctant to wear a suit at a networking event or at a job fair. Wear that gosh darn suit, okay? Wear that suit. And you can't really get away with rocking a big fat beard like this unless you're kind of living a lifestyle like I am. But I can do it because I don't have to walk in to job interviews and walk into professional environments all the time. Yeah, here and there I do, but I can kind of do this and get away with it. But until then, until you can run the show like Grant can now, okay? You gotta show up and play the game, and a part of that is walking the walk and talking the talk, and it really does matter how you look and how you dress. So that's a fantastic question, Grant. Hamza, as still a student who is in a scenario where people are judging you all the time, and you kind of gotta pass the tests here and there. What do you have to add about dressing the part and looking good, looking the part?
Yeah, no, I think like I used to really regret it. I used to like neglect, sorry, not regret. I used to really neglect it, and I suffered massively from this. But I would like to go a level deeper and say Mark Zuckerberg wears the exact same thing to work every day. Kevin O'Leary on Shark Tank wears the exact same suit every single time. There's no change. Why is that so? Because the less decisions you make in a day, the more effective your decisions will be. That is why, especially if you want to be a leader or something like that, you cannot spend your time figuring out what I'm going to wear when you get up in the morning every single day of the week. That's why I think it's just effective to say, okay, a suit and tie is good for success. I'm going to wear this every single time I go to work. And if you want, I'm going to wear this every single time I go out. I don't care. I have met some people who are like that. They're like, I'm going to wear a suit and tie all the time. I don't care. And they did it.
I know a lot of people who do that, and it really is something that I think works potentially. We got a question in the chat.
Yeah,
go ahead.
And the other thing Jake kind of highlighted is like a lot of people in my generation, or even people like older or younger, they look at people like Mark Zuckerberg and they're like, yeah, I don't want to wear a suit and tie. I don't want to wear this when I go to work. Like, I want to just be like Mark Zuckerberg and show up like this. No, Mark Zuckerberg paid his dues, and you have to do the exact same.
Yeah, Zuck earned it. And Maestro, to answer your question, they said, is this the same with interns with ties and suits? I mean, imagine if you're the intern who shows up looking like all the other interns in the history of internships, right? Okay, cool. Then you're just Maestro Rationale. But if you show up wearing your suit every day and you show up wearing a tie every day, then you are Mr. Maestro Rationale, who potentially has a future with this company, and you're really going to stand out and get talked about. So, I mean, honestly, these Gen Zs, they really do have this attitude like, oh, I can just be like Zuck. And like Hamza said, no, Zuck earned it. Zuck did something that set him apart outside of his attire. He can kind of stand above it, just like Jobs just wore the black black t-shirt, v-neck or whatever every day with those
jeans. He's got a couple billion, so it's like, okay, whatever, fire me. I got all this money anyways.
Yeah, this is what it is. So I love that. Does Yarker have a question here? Engineering is great and all, but how someone could be comfortable working for another person for a slightly above salary wage for the rest of their life baffles me. Okay, so I don't know where you're from, but I think you need to check yourself, because slightly above average salary. So if you look at all of the top salaries in the world, and particularly in the West, they're mostly engineering degrees and things that, if they're not an advanced degree like a doctor, lawyer, dentist, they're an engineering degree. So I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe you're in India where there's been this massive saturation of engineering degrees, and it's not your fault, but yeah, it's a supply and demand challenge where they've basically pumped out too many degrees. If that's the situation, sure, but I think you're a little bit off the mark here, okay? And so I'm not really going to talk about that because, sorry, you just don't know what you're talking about. Jeremy Galloway, thanks for being here again. Being consistent also makes your team more confident in your leadership abilities. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Kind of they're responding in terms of your attire remarks, Hamza. So thanks so much for that. Helen, hey, what up? Completely agree with that statement. I guess, dressing for success. Love that. There was another person up here. She's probably gone. Makes me think there was a engineering question by a woman engineer whose name started with a K long ago. I think we missed it. What do you do when struggling in undergrad? Yeah, okay. Let's make sure we're getting all these questions. I think we might be missing some. But Atlas Flame, what up? Let's say here, I'm close to my bachelor's degree, but feel like I am not able to apply my knowledge in the working world. It feels just like I've started learning engineering and know nothing yet. I guess that's normal. What's your question? I guess that's normal, and I will actually learn how things work in my first job. I guess that's the question. Good question. So, yeah, you're exactly right. So, as an engineer, as a student, you are going to, guys, make sure you hit this like button. You know, there's been 540 of you who have showed up and only 44 likes. Hit the like button so that more people can find this live stream. We're the 1% Engineer Show. We empower young engineers to rise to the top 1% of your career. Follow the links below in order to get the internship opportunities that we're setting up for you. We only got about 25 spots left. We're going to be trying to get you guys an internship, and Hamza and I are building a remote internship. Join the Discord server. We have 950 engineers in the server. Boom, boom, boom. 950 engineers in the server. And so Atlas Flame, yeah, to answer your question, that's exactly right. So you're going to learn 99% of the things that you need to know for your career on the job, okay? You really just learn how to solve problems and how to communicate and how to have the right work ethic and these types of things. In university, you don't really learn the skills and the practical software knowledge and the ways to actually navigate certain projects and about corporate scenarios. Everything is different and everything is unique, and every company does things a little bit differently. And so by the time you get there, you really do have a fresh slate, unless you stay in one sector, in one area, in one industry for a long time. Everything really is getting started and learning it as you go. So that's a very normal type of feeling. Hamza, what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, I mean, when you graduate out of college, you don't know anything, to be real with you and to be honest. It's like they still train you, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, when you get that first job, especially when you're a new level graduate. Like my dad was telling me, he's like, companies know that you don't know anything. Companies know that you don't have any experience. Like, there's no point in hiding that. In fact, if you hide that, that's just going to come across as very weird.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, shower and chill. Shower and 46. Yeah, chill. We're getting your question right now. Sometimes we miss stuff. We got two people answering questions, and we're managing things behind the scenes. And you see me not looking at the camera. We're trying to do everything we can to get to every question, but sometimes we're not perfect. So how do you get through situational judgment tests and get to the interview stage? Because I'm failing them tests. That's probably why we didn't answer your question. Because I'm failing them test even before getting them to see my CV. I mean, so that's your problem. Like, you need to reverse engineer how to get through these tests and Google, like, what type of tests? Situational judgment tests. I don't even know what you're talking about. So, Hamza, do you know what?
I think I have an idea as to what he's talking about. I remember my dad was talking to me about this. So basically, it's questions in terms of, like, if a problem arises, how would you solve it? I'll give you a perfect example. So imagine you're working on a team with 5 engineers, and you have to work with another engineer on the team very closely. And you're doing your part, but the other person isn't doing his part. How would you handle this? It's stuff like this.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair question because my dad asked me this question. I gave an answer, and it was the wrong answer, basically. What I said I would go to the manager, but no, there's an order of operations and there's a hierarchy. And basically, the answer to this question would be something like, you need to talk to the person who you're working with, your colleague, first. You need to say, hey, listen, I'm doing my part, but I want you to start doing your part. And then if that doesn't happen, you need to go to your manager and present him with the evidence and say, hey, I'm doing my part. Here's my work. He's not doing anything. I think you need to step in here. And I had a conversation with him beforehand. It's something like this.
Okay, cool. Yeah, love that. I'm not going to dive into that much more because I'm not really sure what situational judgmental tests. I mean, if you're a software engineer, then that it is what it is. We don't talk as much about software engineering because those are the only ones that I can think about the testing before you even get to the part where they see your CV. So yeah, I can't really help you that much about that. Sorry. That's maybe why the question got skipped, is because it's kind of a weird one, but it's okay. Sid Arth says, I'm a high school student right now. I'm kind of worrying about what engineering path. Okay, so I have a video. It's actually episode 5 on the 1% Engineer Show, made 3.5 years ago. But this is a very common thing. I think you've got to look at the big 3: civil, electrical, and mechanical, and then really take a look at where you're interested, where your interests are, what you're excited about, and the things that you pay attention to, and what you seem to be passionate about, and then figure out which engineering curriculum can get you closer to that. That's really the way to pick the best one that's for you. If you're in high school right now, it's not necessarily too early to be thinking about this, but it's definitely too early to choose if you're a 13-year-old in engineering, which we've had that on the stream tonight. But if you're, a year away from applying to university, then you really do need to be thinking about this a little more closely and start to commit to something down the road, or start to at least emotionally commit. Is this the one that you want to do for the rest of your life? My father is a carpenter, and so civil engineering was always the thing that I thought I was going to do. Just like Grant, I'm sure, just like me, I'm sure Grant was playing with Legos and playing SimCity and doing these sort of infrastructure-related interests and passions that got you excited about civil engineering. I read design books and bridge books and things like this. And I kind of had a progression and a trajectory towards civil engineering. And then what happened was, in late high school, I got really into wiring car audio systems and for my friends and for myself. And I thought that there was a way that I was going to want to go into electrical engineering. And I actually applied to the electrical engineering program, and then I had a change of heart the summer before freshman year for civil engineering, and I switched back to civil engineering, and I trusted my gut, and I don't regret it, because I don't know if I would have survived electrical engineering. I barely survived civil engineering, so I probably wouldn't have made it through EE. But you kind of just have to pay attention to your interests, your passions, look at where your skills are, how you're spending your time, and go for it, and you're going to be okay. Great question. Do you have anything to add about choosing a major, Hamza? Choosing the right one? Cool, thanks. Sir Arden says, second internship got cut for me because of COVID as an electrical engineering student for the winter. What are some books, anyone trying to stay productive, since I have all this free time now? I get a lot of book questions here tonight. It's funny how every time we stream, there's a pattern of questions. Books or anything to stay productive. I mean, I have a book list. Maybe I should redo another book video. I really think Power of Habit. Let's just run through a bunch of books. Power of Habit behind me. I really like Shoe Dog, which was the Nike story of Phil Knight. And that's a big journey of perseverance and belief in yourself, where the Nike founder was working as a full-time accountant and had a team of people working for him. And even though his father didn't believe in him until he was making $5 million of revenue, he just kept on pushing. Lean Startup is really good for Lean Startup is really good for how to fail fast, fail early, and get out MVPs. I think an engineer could really use some of that thinking in their career. Other things, Good to Great are So Good They Can't Ignore You. Good to Great is another really good book. How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think Tools of Titans and Tribes. What is it? Tribes of something of Tribes. The Tribe book that Tim Ferriss has. And I read a lot of self-help and entrepreneurial books. The Productivity Project is on the shelf behind me. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey is a flagship book. Learn about investing. I think it's a really good year to reflect and look at how you can start to invest for the rest of your life. Read Benjamin Graham's The Intelligent Investor, which was Warren Buffett's #1 mentor and #1 book that he suggests. Any other, while we're rambling off books, Hamza, I know you've talked about Atomic Habits. What was the one that you mentioned earlier, Hamza?
The Winner Effect.
The Winner Effect. Yeah, I love that. Really good. So I guess Sir hour on. Make sure that you check out those books and follow the links below. Guys, if you're looking for an internship, if you want us to help you find one, or if you want to sign up for the 1% Engineer remote internship, follow the links below and you can be on the waiting list for that. We're only taking about 24 more, so go ahead and don't delay. Follow the links below because you might not have an opportunity to join in the future. Rob says, as a student right now, I worry a lot about the future. Should I worry? As I do. What do you worry about, Rob? So we've talked a lot. What do you worry about? Getting opportunities, for example. Oh, here he says, for example, now that you finished school already and have been through a job, would it be any better if you don't worry? As I feel like there's more questions. What are you worried about? I think that, yeah, becoming like self-aware and identifying exactly what is bothering you. First of all, that's a heavy lift in itself, but that can really help you start to figure out how to reach some sort of resolution. Are you still dropping these questions in the document, Hamza?
Oh yeah, no,
I feel
not
like
really.
they're not,
But
because it's
what
really
I
hard
would
for me to
say
look through the
that,
chat. Thanks. Rob, yeah, I would love to know what has you concerned, what has you worried, and yeah, because somebody complained that their question was missed, but we already got to it. That
yeah, my
was
fault. I'll
no, it's
handle
all good. It's all good. We're still working through our system over here, guys. No worries. We're all being human. Until we can have a robot help us manage the stream, there will be questions that get missed from time to time. So I'm just going to go through here. I want to know, Rob, since I know you're still here, let us know who or what types of things you worry about, and sort of either like as much context as you possibly can. Like what does worrying look like to you? How does it affect you? What do you think you worry about? And if you're not really sure, then we can talk about that. But that's the equally normal thing. So a couple
Yeah,
shout
what
outs
I would
here.
like to say
Go
to
ahead.
that,
Go ahead. Yeah.
what I would like to say to that is like you need to suss out stuff in like what can I control and what can I not control. Focus on what you can control, punt everything else. Like I'll give you an example of this. So you can directly focus on your future. Like you can make the decision to, okay, I'm going to focus more on my school. I'm going to focus on joining clubs. I'm going to focus on doing this personal development course, whatever. You can directly focus on that. What you can't control is stuff like, oh, what if a recession comes and I can't find another job? You can't control that. So disregard that fear.
Yeah, exactly right. I guess Zick has been here the whole time. Thanks for that. I really like Thomas Frank as well for a while. I was trying to emulate some of Thomas Frank's study content and motivational content, so I think that's really good. Sharon says, there's a YouTuber doctor named Ali Abdal based in Oxford. Great tips for productivity. Yep, love that. Let's see here. I had some questions posted earlier. Jeremy, why don't you go ahead and just post your questions in the chat now, and we can try to get to them right away. It's hard for me to take my attention away from the stream and go back up the chat or look in email. The B says, do companies in the U.S. hire people with degrees from public European universities? You know, right now, I think it's the hardest time ever to be getting opportunities in other countries. So I don't think you should be wasting your time looking at that, particularly if you are not a U.S. citizen or have some way to get a fast path into permanent residency. So maybe not worry about that so much. Go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, basically the answer to that question is I would say yes, but if you're coming from the outside in, it's probably going to take you more effort than the American, because a lot of companies, what I've noticed is they do shy away from sponsoring people and whatnot, because a lot of these big companies like Infosys and whatnot, they do abuse the system. And the immigration system in the United States is not designed well, and it doesn't work well. That's all I'm going to say to that.
Yeah, I love that. Getting a whole bunch more questions in the chat. So Yarker, glad you're still here. I was a little harsh on you about that question, but honestly, I really do think that based on my research, engineering just does a lot better, particularly in the West. And so, you know, I just don't like showing up with a negative attitude about how much money engineers make or how likely it is for you to get a job, because it really is a good career. And so I just didn't appreciate the shade, but I really appreciate you still being here. I'll jump right over to your other question. On average, how fast can a student who just graduated, who has an engineering job lined up, pay off their student debt? Let's say the student debt is a range of $40,000 to $60,000. What a good question. And I think the great question, I really like this because, you know, I had a good amount of student debt coming out of university. really, really reminiscent of that range. And so I want to direct you over to a guy who, he graduated with a Harvard MBA, but he made this blog called NoMoreHarvardDebt.com. And he showed his journey about essentially how to smash. He had like $110,000 of student loans to pay off. And he had a really good salary job, just like an engineer would, but he was working all these side hustles and all these other jobs, and how he did what they call a debt snowball, where you pay off not based on the interest rates of your loans, but you pay off that first loan first, and then you use the payment towards that loan to apply it to the second loan. And then once that second loan is dead, you apply both of those loan payments to the third loan. And this is what they call a debt repayment snowball. And so there are certainly strategies where you can live super broke and eat ramen, which, me and my startup team, we were still doing that a year ago, and really just making sure we're living as frugal as possible and be as smart as possible with all of our decision making, because there's always another way to spend the money, but how you save the money and how you invest into the future, and just make sure that you're using your finances for experiences instead of material things, and making sure you're thinking about your future self instead of yourself right now. I think you can make a big dent, as Chris D'Elia would say, in that student debt, even if it is 40, 50, 60,000. My brother had like 30,000 going out of school, and he paid that off immediately. So there's other ways, and he's working in politics, he's not getting that engineering salary. So there's plenty of ways to nail down your debt immediately and get through that. Still not seeing any fresh questions in this document, Hamza, but I guess we can just take them off the live chat, because I think we'll stream here. We don't even add them. We'll just take them off the live chat, because we'll probably just stream here until 10. We'll do a lightning round in the next 5 minutes just to smash through questions, and then we can clear it up. Let's see here. Paige says it costs a company money to hire a foreign employee. So I really don't think it's.
What about Grant's third question?
What's that? Sorry. Oh, Grant's third question. Yeah, let's get to that. Let's get to that real quick and smash through that for a lightning round. I'm not sure if Grant's still here, but I'd love to do it. In this statement, nice guys finish last. True in engineering world. Do I have to be a jerk to get into upper levels of management? I mean, you can answer this question a couple different ways, but I really think that emotional intelligence and being a nice person and being likable and making sure that you are just being the best possible individual that you can be as you walk around the office and as you communicate. And you're always thinking about like how someone's gonna perceive what you say, and making sure that you're always thinking about the impacts of your decisions and your career moves and things like that is the way to go. Therefore, I don't really believe in the nice guys finish last. I think that in certain industries like finance or investing, you do have to be ruthless, and there's a little bit more cutthroat nature around things. So great question, Grant, but I don't think it has to be worried about too much. Let's just keep smashing through some questions here. Trevor says, including the new extractions process and cultivation, I'm wondering what types of engineering can give me the best chance to get into that industry. The extractions, processing, and cultivation, what is that? I don't know what he's talking about. Let's use a little more context instead of like hyper detail. I'm not really sure. It's a two. So you got to put your whole question in one paragraph, guys. I'm a freshman student at the School of Engineering at my school, but I haven't decided my specific major. I'm very passionate about cannabis and the science around it. Really cool. That's great. I don't really know. I think like chemical engineering gets into food engineering, but honestly, if you're going to get into cannabis, I don't know. I don't think getting an engineering degree is going to help you get into the cannabis sector. I think the cannabis sector is already hyper-saturated. California has been doing it for 15 years already. I think 2005 is when the boom was. So it's too late, especially if you're trying to get an engineering degree in order to become somebody in the cannabis market. Like, it's too late. Like, it's too saturated. It's not cool. It's not interesting. Like, you can be a part of the community and support it, whether it's CBD or hemp products, or if you're into recreational cannabis or any sort of medicinal cannabis use. Yeah, I mean, this is what it is. Like, we're going into basically an anti-prohibition type of country, at least in America. Canada also has super liberal policies around this, and you're going to see a lot of other countries follow suit. But it is what it is. I'm a pro-cannabis type of person. I don't think that there should be big restrictions on it, because big pharma and these other big medical organizations, they don't necessarily want cannabis to thrive. But it doesn't mean you need to get an engineering degree to sort of be a part of the industry. You can kind of just do it right now if you want. I don't know. See, the only issue with not running this document is like it just missed stuff, and so we'll have to figure that out along the way. But we'll do it for next stream. So just gonna smash through a couple of these questions. Yep, love that, Maestro. Jeremy Galloway, oh Jake, know about we don't lie. yeah, got you, Jeremy. Paige Fay says, I heard that it is smart to take the FE exam in undergrad. Paige, it depends what type of engineer you are. So if you're a civil, have to take it. If you're mechanical and you're in HVAC or you're in mechanics, probably take it. If you're an electrical engineer and you're in power, have to take it. Otherwise, you basically don't have to take it. I was looking at all the graduation rates for the PE every year. For example, how many computer engineers take it? There's only 34 computer engineers who sat for the American PE exam in computer engineering last fall. You know, that's ridiculous. The software engineering, they did one for software engineering. They only offered it a couple times and then they took it out. That's how few people actually sat for it. So, yeah, it is what it is. Let's see here. I heard that you have to be smart to take the FE exam in undergrad. Do you agree with that? No, because it's not based on, well, I mean, it's not an easy exam. It's 8 hours and it's 4 years of content. But how it's graded makes it an exception to the rule because you do not have to just get a 70% like you do. I think you need a 70 for the PE. You're graded against the average of the community. So you only have to beat out 50% of the rest of the engineers. So if everybody's super smart that year, it's not great for you. But if everybody's average, I mean, I skipped entire sections. As a civil engineer, I didn't know any of the chemistry. I didn't know any of the circuits, and it was fine. So you're going to be okay. Yarker says, great answers. You're really knowledgeable about everything. Thanks so much. Yeah, no worries. Sorry I was hard on you for that question before, but honestly, I'm going to defend my engineering brethren. That's why we're here, you know. I really do think that engineering is one of the best possible careers that you can do. And based on the numbers, it makes really good money compared to a lot, and you get a lot of respect and a lot of pride compared to a lot of careers. And so I just wanted to set the bar straight, set the matter straight. Rob Torres says, thank you, Hamza. Control what you can do and don't worry about things you can't. Gotcha. Yep. Dave Ramsey, Debt Snowball. Yep. Jeremy Garraway, thanks so much. Jake, did you work for a city or state government as a civil engineer? Yeah, I did, actually. So I had the ability to intern at the Federal Highway Administration, and for a lot of my private sector engineering companies, we were consultants for departments of transportation. So even though I didn't work for them, that we sat side by side, a lot of engineers, and I think that I want to make sure that I'm very passionate about cannabis. Okay. I think that the big difference between working for like a government agency or city or state government is just that we talked about this before. So there's public sector, which is what you're talking about, and public sector engineering. What you're going to do is, I don't know if you want to take this question, Hamza. You kind of know them by now, but like the differences. Do you want to talk about this or what?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing I would say about the working for the government is just extremely slow, and if you're an ambitious person, I don't think the government is the place where you should be. Also, you're dealing with people who are very demotivated, and based off of what I've seen and what I've heard, they don't really want to do anything with their life. I hate putting it like this, but I think that is the reality. And if you don't believe me, go to the DMV and just look at the employees there. Like you could just look in their eyes and you could kind of see that. That's what I would say to that.
Yeah, you know, the DMV is a little bit of a far cry from engineering, but at the same time, I think it does trickle up the ladder. Here we go, because the people who are working there are, you know, government employees like post office. You know, nothing against post office, but the people who are carrying your mail and the people who are working at the DMV are just sort of like the foundational tier of governmental employees. But that same sort of attitude and the same sort of stereotypes do exist with government employees all the way up the chain. And so here's the difference between private sector or working for a company that is in it to win it and make money based on capitalism versus public sector, like working for a Department of Transportation or working for a city Department of Public Works as an engineer. You're still going to have a great job. You're going to be respected. You're going to make a good bit of money. But here's the differences. So you don't your expectations for workload is considerably less if you're working for government, or let's call it public sector, which is government or city, versus private sector, okay, which is a capitalistic driven, results driven, revenue driven, working harder, faster, stronger type of regular company, okay? That's private sector. City and government is public sector. So public sector, you're still going to do okay. It's not as fast paced. You're not going to work a minute over 40 hours a week. You're probably only going to work like 10 to 15 regular hours a week, and the rest of it's going to be pretty
Clock
slow.
in, clock out.
Yeah, clock in, clock out, whatever. Go through the motions. And then you're going to have probably a decent salary, but not as much because you don't work as hard. Your benefits package may be better. Okay, you may have more part-time off. You may have more sick leave. You may have a better retirement package. You may get lucky enough to have a pension, whereas those things are unheard of within private sector engineering. Okay, and you also have more job security. There's nobody who's trying to fire you. There's no results that you need to hit. How it works in engineering, guys, is there's a lot of money that the government has to designate for certain sectors in the world. And so how it works is, I'm a civil engineer working in transportation engineering historically. And so what they do is they say, okay, we have all these Tiger grants or this money, and it needs to be dedicated to these bridge projects and these transportation projects. And the states and the governments, they sort of say, okay, well, here's this project, here's this thing, and they divvy it up and they give it out to private sector engineers. And these governmental employees, these public sector engineers, they kind of just manage the money and manage the schedule and manage the expectations, but they don't do any of the work, okay? They just make sure that the government or that the private sector consultants basically, they're the client, okay? They're the ones distributing the money. They're just making sure that you're doing and following the rules and doing what you said you were going to do. It's the other company that the faster you do the work, the more money you make. Nothing changes if you work harder or faster or stronger for a public sector, a government employee. There's no incentive to answer your email past 4:30 on a Friday or work faster or do your job better. There's no incentive. It doesn't work like that. And so that's why what Hamza said is entirely true. You do sort of get the middle or the bottom of the barrel really of talent because you don't really need to do anything different to rise above and achieve. So you have your public sector, you have your private sector, and then you have your people who break out of private sector and start their own company and basically dilute the private sector and bump out and disrupt and innovate. And so that's a really good question. Let's do a little lightning round here. So if you're still here, okay, if you're still here and you don't have a question that's been answered, drop it in the chat again because I'm taking questions right off the top of the chat. I want to make sure you're actually here before we answer your questions. Manny, thanks for being here. Love that. My DMV is trash. Awesome. Rob says, actually, I'm going to skip, Rob. You can get my time in email and Slack, so I might actually skip your question from now. Sorry about that. Jeremy says, when I asked about working for government, my real initial question was, Jake, did you work with explosives or demolition while working for the Highway Authority? Not directly, of course, but involved. So no, not explosive. That would be a little bit more rare. I'm sure there are some companies that work for controlled demolitions or explosives, but no. Even if we had to do that for an infrastructure project, I think it would be sort of in a vacuum, in a microcosm. But no, that's a really good question. I think there might be like a demolition engineers or something out there in the world, but that's a cool question. Shade says a lot of city and state governments I deal with on a daily basis are contracted. Yep, love that. Exactly. Sir Aaron says, do you think companies will still want engineers from Zoom University learning from home? Yeah, I mean, honestly, you can't just skip this wave of engineers. Like, we need to hire the engineers that are still, just because you got trapped in this pandemic doesn't mean you're like unhireable for the rest of your life. It just becomes more challenging to find a role because less people are hiring because the economy is weird. They don't, like, you're not going to be judged because of the era in which you were raised. Like, you don't need to worry about that. You also can't affect that, so, or you can't control that. So it is what it is. Tinu says, I heard that if, Go ahead, Hamza. Go ahead.
It's pretty toxic to believe that you're unhireable, and I don't think anybody wants that attitude anyways.
Plus, yeah, it's just not a way to like find success. So don't worry about that. Tinu says, I heard that if you work for a company for so long that they can take 2 years of your 4 to help you get your P's. I heard that if you work for a company for so long that they can take 2 years of your. So no, that's not really true. So what it is that if you get your master's degree, that counts for 1 year of experience. What Tinu is talking about is that you need 4 years of engineering experience working under a professional engineer to be eligible for the professional engineering exam yourself. And there are some workarounds to gaining that 4 years of experience, and one of those is getting a master's degree, which counts as a year. I think a PhD counts as 2 years. But other than that, it's not like the specific companies. As far as I know, working for a specific company does not accelerate your ability to get the PE. So you could move to a state or do what Grant Waldy has done, and you could take the test in certain states that require less things to be eligible for the PE. But honestly, the 4 years is the 4 years. Yarker says, have you witnessed any other engineers who have converted their main focus to real estate investing? Interesting. Little off the topic. No, it's okay. But just curious as I eventually want to branch off into that. So I know a lot of entrepreneurial friends and small business owner friends that want to get involved in real estate engineering or have. And it's a tough game. I mean, you can make a lot of money. I was just talking to a friend of my girlfriend's, close friend of my girlfriend's, a guy who he did a flip and, made tens of thousands of dollars in one transaction. And he said that in a 5 weeks worth of effort, he could make what he needed to his break-even expenses for 12 months. That's really good. And
real estate's very competitive. That's what I'll say about that.
Yeah, it's really competitive. It's a lot of fewer barriers to entry. So it depends on what you're doing. I think if you're the one who has the relationships with people who can buy a house and then fix it up and take something and create value, then you are going to be successful. But if you're just playing the sort of arbitrage game where you're looking for something that's priced lower than it is and trying to sell it priced higher than it is, like that's a really tough game, and the market sort of equalizes. But if you can add value, so if you can fix it up and make it worth $25,000 to $50,000 worth more than it is, or a guy who knows a guy who can do these things, then yeah, I think it could be potentially quite lucrative. But otherwise, yeah, I don't really think that it's something that you really want to bet a whole lot of eggs on. So, yep, yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, it's. I love that you're here, Rob. But here at the grand finale, I'd rather grab a couple questions. But just for the sake of you, I think I am going to go back and hit your question. So, Rob, it's been amazing if you wrote a book on the excelling in engineering with some of the most common questions and guidelines. Yeah, I think I will do that. A lot of people have encouraged me to write a book. How early should one start studying for the FE, the PE? Great question, Rob. How beneficial is it to have? So the PE is a whole different animal. The FE is kind of just like a capstone exam where you can just beat 50% of the other engineers because that's exactly how they grade it. But go ahead and hit the like button, guys. There's a whole bunch of new people in here right now. 700 of you have stopped by. There's 32 here. So hit the like button for more people. Go ahead and sign up for the 1% Engineer remote internship. Follow the links below. Make sure you subscribe. I know there's a bunch of new people here. But the FE, I started studying, honestly, like a month before. I didn't take it as seriously as some people did. I only had a couple friends who failed it. So it's a little baby test that you just have to do okay. Honestly, like if you're a good enough student, you're not going to have a problem with it. But the PE, woo! So a lot of people, they study for a year or 6 months really hard, but really you should start studying for a whole year. And because you want to do aerospace engineering, Rob, I wouldn't worry about it as much. You only, as a mechanical engineer, there is some people who take the thermal, but like I wouldn't even be thinking about it as much for you. Only if you want to show your leadership. But we're going to move on and get to some more grand finale stuff. So Jesus says, what should I expect going into mechanical engineering major? Expect a lot of design, either having to choose between mechanics or going into the electrical field, like the robotics field. What are sets of skills you have to work on? What's that, Hamza?
A lot of studying. Whatever you would expect out of a typical engineering degree.
Yeah. Let's see. Shade says, what do you see being the best engineering field to go into for stability for a college student starting in the fall? I don't think that's the way to look at it. I think you need to pick the one that's the best suited for you. Okay, electrical engineering is very strong right now. Mechanical engineering is very strong. All the big three. Mechanical, electrical, or civil, you can't go wrong. I don't mind industrial engineering because there's 285,000 industrial engineers in America. Shahib says, do most environmental engineers work on wastewater treatment plants? No. There's 55,000 environmental engineers in America. They're not all working at wastewater treatment plants. Or can you work on something more exciting like reversing the effects of climate change? Yes. Great question. You can work in whatever you want in environmental engineering. I think it's a great field. I think you should do that. Maestro says, yeah, write a book. So, guys, if you would buy a book by the 1% Engineer team or by the 1% Engineer project, or I guess, I would be lead author or whatever. I don't even like saying that. But if you guys would buy a book, type the number 1 in the chat if you would want a book, if you'd be interested in it. If you'd want to be stakeholders in the creation of the content for that book, we could almost build a sort of team of students to let us know what they want to learn and what we should talk about in that book. Type a 1 in the chat. I would love to consider this more seriously. I almost wrote a book about how to do a TEDx talk that gets 1 million views, because us as TEDx Wilmington, we did this like 25 times, and I'd love to do that for engineering one day. Grant has a book. Thomas Anderson has a book. What's his name? The guy from Engineering Management Institute. We have why am I blanking on his name? Anthony Fasano has a book. Yeah, Manny, love that. Awesome. Let's see. What other questions can we take here at the grand finale before we clip here? T-News says, I heard that if you work for a company for so long that they can take 2 years. Okay, I already answered that. Do you think, are we up to all these questions? A lot of city, state. Yep. Jeremy says, when you ask about working for the government. Yep. Let's see here. I want to try. Caroline K. Yeah, Carolina, sorry so much. Your question was missed. I saw you ask that before. Open-ended question. Do you have an opinion on Boston Dynamics? I saw they were just sold. Hyundai just bought Boston Dynamics for $900 and something million, and that's the company that's making the robots that can do the backflips and the robotic dogs. And so the question is, do you have an opinion on Boston Dynamics, a general company, or the direction they're headed? I love Boston Dynamics. So Boston Dynamics is the company that's making those ridiculous robots, and so I really like what they're doing. We should probably do, Hamza, please write this down and remind me. Let's do a video on what do Boston Dynamics engineers do, because they're going to be in the media right now. It might be a really good opportunity to highlight their robots that are absolutely insane. I can't remember the 2 names of their robots, but they have some really famous innovation behind their robotics and literally doing like double backflips off of tables and things like that. So a couple more questions. We'll take them for a second. Boston Dynamics, Jeremy says, Kashif, I was wondering how one, hey, how you doing, can get started with personal projects. I mean, do a project that's going to amplify your personal career or your engineering career, along with something that you like and you can spend time on, something that can maybe get you in front of other engineers and professionals who can change your life, like starting a blog, a podcast, a YouTube show, an Instagram page, something where you can feature other people and put out content and show your work and have a portfolio item. I think that's something to think about. Hamza, you did a biomedical engineering blog for 1% Engineer 3 years ago. You've worked on some innovation products, like designing custom orthotics there in your bedroom. Do you have anything to say about, the question is wondering about how you can get started with personal projects. Love that question. Anything to add?
Don't overthink the start. Just get started, honestly. It's a mistake I've made in the past. You need to just get started.
Yeah, so just go. Turn on that ambition cap and just go. Nobody cares about your ideas or your I'm gonnas. It's more about the what you do. T-News says, hey, Jake, I think you said you've done transportation engineering. Yeah, that's absolutely right. That's what I am. What drafting software do you use, and what's to design roads and bridges? So Autodesk makes AutoCAD, and there's also this thing called Civil 3D, which is where you will create the super elevations and sort of the cross-sectional analysis of a roadway alignment. We also do things like ME2, EMME2, ME2. I used Vissim, VISSIM, which is a micro simulation software, along with Visum, VISUM, which is a macro simulation and demand modeling software. You also have Rodel, which is a roundabout and turning sort of I think it's an Australian roundabout software. I think it's called Rodel, unless I have that wrong. But there's all kinds of niche softwares. We used one that was just for emissions. We used one, I think it was Dynamac, yeah, which was another sort of like, they called it mesoscopic modeling, which was a hybrid between macroscopic and microscopic. So yeah, lots of cool softwares there. MicroStation is another drafting program that you may want to learn about that is similar to AutoCAD. Couple grand finale questions here. Also, do a video if you haven't already on the founding of 1% Engineer. Wow. That's a really good question. I don't get a lot of questions like that, from thought to fruition. I really like that question. I don't get many like that. Gotta go. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for being here. Do a video on DARPA. Love that. I really like the DARPA urban and driverless vehicle grand challenge. I'd love to do something about that. Super cool. So thanks for coming here, guys. We're going to clip the stream here. Go ahead and like this video so that more people watch the rebroadcast. There's been 700 engineers who have stopped by. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Go ahead and follow the links below and sign up for the 1% Engineer remote internship. We're going to try and help you guys get real internships in the spring, in the summer. But if you don't fill out that form, then ask for nothing and you get nothing. Go ahead and join the Discord server, guys. 950 engineers are in there, and that is our community. I want to go. What did you say, Hamza?
I said and growing.
And growing, yeah. Right now we have 958 engineers in there, and we can help you with your engineering success. Make sure you follow the Instagram page. You can find the links below. We have probably about 400 engineers on that by now. We want to get it to 500 by the end of the month. I know it's a little bit of an arduous task, but we are going to try. Ralph, go ahead and check us out on next live stream, Thursday at 8 p.m. We're not taking questions anymore. Sorry about your timing. But it is what it is, especially because that question is a little bit longer. I think you do need internships, but we'll take that in the future. Guys, send me an email, hello@jakevoorhees.com. Let me know what your questions are. Let me know how we can help you. Let me know what type of stuff we want to be doing for next year. It's funny how when I asked who would buy the book, Manny was the only one. So, Rob Torres says one. So yeah, maybe we'll save the book for future. But yeah, I think I'll write one eventually. But guys, thanks so much. We want to hear from you. What should we be doing? What should we be doing in the future? We're talking about a mentorship program. We're talking about running workshops. We're talking about building this internship program far into the future, where we really have a connection platform between 1% Nation and employers out there. So thanks so much, guys. If you're still here and you haven't yet, smash that like button on this video so that more people see the rebroadcast. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so that you don't miss any videos. I think What Do Computer Engineers Do is coming out tomorrow. Hamza, do you have any final words for 1% Nation?
No, just thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, guys. Tune in next Thursday, December 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for episode 13 of the 1% Engineer Live. And we'll see you again in another video. See you, Manny. See you, Hamza. See you, Rob. See you, Sir Aaron. See you, Carlos. See you, Tinu. See you, Maestro. See you guys. Check you later. See you, Shahib. Check you later in another